This is a disclaimer. I do not own any Star Wars, Halo, or any other noticeable franchise-related material within this video, which all belong to Disney and 343 Industries respectively. I am merely taking advantage of the Fair Use Act, and am providing this video for the intention of entertainment and education.
Boss, this is your boss.
You got a problem with that? My name's Boba.
In a galaxy far, far away, there raged wars spanning different time periods and different worlds. At the center of these conflicts were always the two opposing sides of the light and the darkness. The Jedi and Sith were at the forefront of every conflict that plagued the galaxy, from the reign of the Infinite Empire to the era of the New Republic. The path of the warrior was not just exclusive to those touched by the power of the Force. Among the Jedi and the Sith, a third form of warrior was capable of going toe-to-toe with these demigods. These warriors were called Mandalorians, and foremost among their kind was the bounty hunter, Boba Fett. A bounty hunter by the name of Jango Fett required an heir to carry on his legacy and that of his former mentor, Jace de Morel. His wish would be granted by an agreement formed with the Sith Lord Darth Tyrannus, and Boba would be the first clone to be produced in Jango's image. As soon as his son was able, Jango began to train him in the way of the warrior, and would even go as far to use extremely unorthodox and dangerous methods to ensure that the boy was modeled to perfection. Their relationship would soon be torn asunder upon Jango's death on Geonosis. Alone, Boba began his journey to become the greatest bounty hunter in the galaxy, from his attempted assassinations of Mace Windu to his jobs for the Empire and the Hutts. Fett grew to be feared and respected by the time of the Galactic Empire. He could match any opponent, Jedi or Sith. A time came when he would lead his people against the new enemy, the Yuuzhan Vong, alongside the New Republic. Fett's ultimate fate is unknown.
What if he doesn't survive? He's worth a lot to me. Empire.
Officer 117. The highest rank you can attain is Master Chief Petty Officer.
Then I will.
However, Boba Fett's galaxy wasn't the only one seeded with war. In another galaxy, another warrior was created, a soldier forged. His name was Master Chief. Centuries in the future, mankind has spread itself throughout the galaxy and have achieved new heights in its advancement. But as with every great civilization, there must be war. The United Earth Government, otherwise known as the UEG, was the main governing body for all of humanity on Earth and its colonies. Unfortunately, not many in the outer colonies were content with heeding the UEG's authority. The threat of civil war a possibility, new steps had to be taken, with Dr. Catherine Halsey proposing a solution. She put forward the Spartan 2 program to the Office of Naval Intelligence, which would give the UNSC an upper hand in any insurrections that arose, and they accepted her proposal. 75 candidates were abducted by Oni and replaced with flash cones that soon died afterwards. One of these prospects being John 117. He, as well as his peers, will be inducted into the program and trained to be the finest soldiers the UNSC and mankind had to offer. John was ahead in front of the other children, bringing him to the attention of Dr. Halsey and his trainer, Franklin Mendez. His training would come to an end when he and his comrades all underwent the augmentation stage, finally altering them into transhumans. John felt and wished that there was a higher purpose for the creation of the Spartans than just killing other humans. His wish would be answered by the arrival of the Covenant hegemony. Master Chief and the UNSC would now be faced with two new enemies, the Covenant and the Insurrectionists. He would go on to do many amazing things in his time as Master Chief, and would become a highly decorated war veteran, receiving every single known UNSC medal, albeit not the Prisoner of War medallion. The Human Covenant War would reach an end 3 decades later, with the destruction of the Covenant and an alliance with the Sangheili. This will not be the end for our hero, as through incalculable circumstances, he made his way to a forerunner planet, fighting through the enemies he encountered and defeated the Didact, but at a great price. A year later, John would be reunited with his teammates and would go on a hunt for his lost AI companion, Cortana. He had defied orders by pursuing this path and was hunted down by another squad of Spartans. They then discovered that Cortana was planning on ruling all life in the galaxy with the AI at her side. Chief's fate is unknown.
Yes, sir. I need a weapon.
Right this way.
By the time of the events in Dark Empire 2, Fett was within his mid to early 40s, and as a well-trained Mandalorian was in peak physical condition. At 6 feet tall, he was in a desirable condition for his species. The extreme training the Mandalorians endured allowed them to boost their physicality just above peak human, which gave them the ability to contend and even match some Jedi and Sith in close quarters combat. As a child, he was capable of pulling a Bolyeg's tooth with the aid of a jetpack, and even as an adult was able to overpower an alien much bigger than him, as well as subduing Bosk. His speed within combat was also quite impressive, being able to make quick draws within a heartbeat and disarming Connor Freeman, his half-brother. This being especially impressive, as clones of Jango inherited the traits that made him such an exemplary physical candidate. When talking of Boba's endurance, he was able to achieve something nigh impossible, that being surviving the stomach acids of the Sarlacc. Finally, his most impressive of his attributes was his reaction time. On multiple occasions, Fett has demonstrated the ability to evade blaster bolts, and this is achieved through a technique coined aim dodging. This is a method that allows for one to avoid projectiles by positioning themselves away from the path of the attack. It is often employed when he goes up against attacks that travel much faster than him. Obviously, it would make the most sense, as blaster bolts travel at hypersonic plus speeds, and even though Fett moves inhumanly quick, I still don't see it as possible for him to dodge such things. His stamina was also likely considerable, as he was able to carry out jobs and fights for extended periods of time. When John was at the age of 6, he as well as his other candidates was stated to already be stronger and faster than the average children of their age. His 8 years of intensive military training would go on to further refine his physicality, where by the age of 12, he held the physique of someone who looked like they were in their early 20s. Dr. Halsey would even go on to comment that John had the physique of an Olympic-level athlete, placing him in peak-level human ability. But all of this was then pumped to the nth degree after going through the augmentation procedure. The procedure was intended to push every aspect of human capabilities into the realm of superhuman, with mass increases to things like strength, speed, and reflexes. Although the procedure was extremely intensive, it ended up killing more than half of his teammates. His height was increased and he became 6 foot 10 inches tall and weighed around 290 pounds. John's strength was the triple of his weight, making him capable of lifting up to 870 pounds. His body was also capable of reaching speeds of up to and over 55 kilometers per hour. He also possessed low light vision, virtually indestructible bones, and stone-dense muscles. His stamina was also greatly enhanced, with modifications that decreased lactate recovery rates to the point that he was able to fight for days with minimal fatigue. With his strength, his blows were capable of denting armor plates that was impervious to arms fire, and even able to kick a trainer who was within an exoskeleton weighing over a ton 8 meters away. In the novel Fall of Reach, it was stated that the candidates would get a lot faster if they adjusted to the alterations on their bodies. As for reaction time, it was stated as nearly impossible to chart, and estimated to be around 20 milliseconds, but was also said to be considerably faster in combat situations. His reactions were that impressive that he could dodge point-blank fire from a minigun during a training exercise. However, when Chief was within his Mark 6 Mjolnir power armor, he was capable of achieving even greater feats of superhuman prowess. He was able to flip a warthog one-handed and drag a Covenant warhead with no noticeable difficulty, both objects weighing at 3.25 tons and over 5 tons respectively. As for his reaction time with the aid of Cortana, he was able to slap an anti-material rifle that was a mere centimeter from his head. Finally, Chief and the rest of his teammates were also taught to ignore pain, as such when he continued running even though he tore his Achilles tendon. This category has a very decisive conclusion. While Boba Fett is in remarkable human condition, so was Chief even before his augmentation, which pretty much makes this category one-sided. He surpasses Fett in every category: strength, speed, stamina, durability, and reaction time. Master Chief shall get the edge in physicality. To be the most efficient bounty hunter in the galaxy, you'll need the most efficient tools for the job. We'll first start off by analyzing Boba Fett's armor and what features it utilizes. During the time of the Empire, Fett was outfitted in custom Mandalorian style armor with plates comprised of Duraplast. Unlike its more widespread counterpart Durasteel, Duraplast was more durable and provided a lot more benefits to the wearer. It was also capable of shrugging off hits from blaster fire, as well as attacks from medium-sized slugs, even on some occasions of taking light strikes from lightsabers. The undersuit was a waterproof armor mesh flight suit that was able to offer some defense and even resist fire. His helmet was fitted with an array of technological features that included 360-degree vision and communication with multiple teammates. The viewplate allowed for vision in low-light areas and prevented blinding from explosions. Macro binoculars interfaced with the rangefinders that could track up to 10 targets, but Boba upgraded this feature to be capable of tracking up to 30. His helmet also contained a 2-hour reserve tank of oxygen and an environmental filter to eliminate contaminants. Further improvements of the designs made by Boba Fett included better weapons control interface, customized advanced penetrating radar lenses, and augmented infrared scanning lenses, olfactory sensors with a 1 part per billion send database, and an upgraded HoloNet database search subroutines. This would make sense as he was capable of dispatching multiple targets at a time with this visual edge. The plates of his armor covered his chest, torso, shoulders, crotch, and kneecaps, with the flight suit covering everywhere else. Boba had mastered every weapon in the known galaxy save the lightsaber. The rest of his arsenal included his gauntlets that were outfitted with a Zerka ZX miniature flame projector, which he'd used to set his enemies alight, a Kelvorek Consolidated Arms MM9 mini concussion rocket launcher that utilized computer targeting technology and fired Type 12A anti-personnel rockets and Type 12B stun rockets. A DIR-24 wrist laser and a fiber cord launcher was used to subdue enemies or grapple to various positions. The quad was 20 meters in length, and the gauntlet also housed a vibroblade and dart launcher. He also adorned a utility pouch around his waist which carried a number of other weapons and micro tools, not to mention that set aside his primary weapons that we're about to get into. He held a number of unknown holdout weapons and is never truly unarmed. Onto his most favorite piece of equipment, which was his Metronomon Z6 jetpack that held roughly a minute's worth of fuel. This piece of kit allowed him unparalleled maneuverability, giving Fett the advantage in terms of positioning, as it allows him to keep up with speed adversaries and evade them as well. The jetpack was also fitted with a top-loaded rocket-firing missile. The only downside to this kit is being the pack was susceptible to physical damage if struck hard enough that could prove fatally for the wearer. As for his primary weaponry, Fett wielded a modified EE-3 carbine, which had a shortened barrel and an electronic scope. A good balance between firepower, accuracy, and weight. The weapon could be used for close, medium, and long range when wielded by a master bounty hunter, especially with the shortened barrel, as well as scope, letting him snipe from afar. Hand grips were also fitted along the rifle, which gave better handling when drawn. The weapon was also powerful enough to disintegrate the targets at close range. He also carried the Sacross K11 blaster pistol, similar to the ones employed by his father, making exceptional use of the weapon in the pair on Kamino. Aside from thermal grenades and sonic disruptors, that's pretty much Boba's arsenal summed up. Of what we know, that is. As a Spartan 2 commando, Master Chief's arsenal wasn't that expansive, but very efficient. First, we'll start off by looking at Chief's armor. Master Chief was outfitted with Mark 6 Mjolnir powered assault armor that came with a plethora of utilitarian features. The first of those was that the wearer's strength and speed were enhanced by a factor of 5 due to the liquid crystal layer beneath the armor plate. Under the plates were of course an inner skin suit made of a moisture-absorbing synthetic material that adjusted to suit the wearer's needs. Plates were segmented to covering most parts of the body, which meant there was still a good level of flexibility and range of motion without sacrificing durability. His helmet possessed an integrated communications device and heads-up display that could identify equipment and display information when held by the wearer. In addition to this, the helmet had onboard sensors that could connect to the neural implants of the Spartans, allowing them to move the armor. I find this strange as there have been multiple instances of Spartans moving without their helmets on, but I digress. The outer shell of the armor was composed of a thick titanium alloy that was extremely durable and could deflect small arms fire. Previous iteration of the armor was capable of tanking plasma shots from assault cannons, a weapon that has been capable of vaporizing targets in a single shot. In between the external armor and the internal padding was a titanium nano composite bodysuit that awarded a certain level of durability as well as a good level of flexibility. Hydrostatic gel was underneath the armored bodysuit that regulated the wearer's body temperature and to boot could be pressurized to negate high velocity impact and high G-forces. A great example of how durable this made him was when he fell from space, twice. A power supply unit was responsible for, as the name suggests, managing the power supply of the armor, while force multiplying circuits bolstered the force applied in the user. Magnetic weapon holder strips were located on the legs, back and waist of the suit to hold any equipment. This system also extended to having the wearer's boots being magnetized to a metal surface in zero-G environments. A thruster pack was located in the back of the suit that allowed for deft evasion when in combat and for maneuverability in low-gravity environments. One of the most obscure features of the Mark VI that dispensed biofoam to seal injuries immediately as well as treat infections. A notable example of this feature was a member of Black Team taking a needler round to the head and still going back into the fight. And finally, the energy shields were one of the greatest steps forward in weapons technology at the time. These energy shields were capable of negating both high-velocity ballistic damage as well as energy damage. During the exercise on Reach, while the Chief was testing out the Mark V model, he was able to take the sustained fire from 2 chain guns for a brief period of time, with his shields only dropping to 75%. This design was no doubt improved when he upgraded to the Mark VI platform. Throughout the Chief's hibernation aboard the Forward onto Dawn, Cortana was able to repair as well as alter his armor using nanotechnology. She also rewrote the suit's firmware, altering the HUD and improving the shield's recharge rate, even going as far to give the suit better compatibility with both Covenant and Forerunner armor plugins. The armor had a number of other features, but none that are too relevant in this battle. The most important piece of tech he had with him in his arsenal was of course his onboard AI, Cortana, an artificial intelligence sculpted from the cloned brain of Dr. Halsey. Cortana was known as a smart AI as opposed to the average dumb AI. Smart AI were known for having less limitations and greater thinking speed as well as other things. Such features came at a cost, with Smart AI suffering from rampancy roughly after 7 years of service. She was capable of aiding Chiefs targeting reticles to improve accuracy as well as giving in-combat assessments to aid combatants, and was able to carry out software infiltration. Chief was also a master of every firearm the universe see, not to mention his adept with all forms of Covenant as well as Forerunner weaponry. He did show issue with the energy sword. However, this was extremely unfair display as this was before his prime and was against an opponent who was well trained with the said weapon. By the time of the events in Halo 4, Chief will be using an MA5D assault rifle as his primary and the M6H Magnum pistol as his secondary. For this video, I will also be including the use of his dual M7S caseless submachine guns, as he utilized them in a lot of special operations and probably didn't use them as the Chief was acting without any formal preparation or mission parameters. The M85D is a gas-operated magazine-fed automatic rifle that holds a number of improvements over its predecessor, the M85C. The rifle itself was outfitted with a bullpup design that had the magazine behind the trigger, meaning an improvement in maneuverability. With a small scope integration for greater accuracy, the MA5D fired 7.62 by 51mm full metal jacket armor-piercing rounds, with a total carry capacity of 128 rounds along with a fire rate of 600 rounds per minute. An extra feature was the built-in ammo counter and the compass in the rifle. In essence, a versatile weapon that was best employed in close to medium engagements. The M6H Magnum was also equipped with a smart link scope and was a semi-automatic weapon that held up to 8 rounds. With 32 rounds being held in reserve, the weapon would fire 12.7 by 40mm semi-armor piercing high explosive rounds that detonated when coming into contact with their target. Such a weapon was most appropriate in a medium to long range engagement. Finally, the M7's caseless submachine guns held just as many pros as well as cons over its regular M7 variant. The main change of course was the SS/M49 sound suppressor affixed to the barrel. Firing 5x23mm M443 caseless full metal jackets with a magazine size of 60 rounds and carrying 240 rounds altogether, it had a 900 RPM with rounds that had hardened steel and tungsten carbide cores to aid in its penetration power. The weapons are fully automatic and saw much use in close quarters combat, not to mention when dual wielded. The only drawback was that the weapon had a less damage per shot output. As with the other firearms, the SMG was also accompanied with a smart link function. Another interesting feature that had to do with the submachine guns was the armor had a feature that allowed for hands-free reloading within the midst of combat. Lastly, the other pieces of offensive kit the Chief carried was a standard issue combat knife that was made from high carbon steel, had an anti-flash non-reflective titanium carbide coating, and an edge coat for corrosion and rust resistance. In Halo 4, the knife had the appearance of a modern-day tactical knife. With John's strength behind the knife, he was capable of puncturing the hull of a Covenant ship. Lastly, John carried a set of M9 high-explosive grenades that were most effective against infantry and lightly armored vehicular targets. The failer for the explosive was Com-L high explosive that was able to propel the grenade shrapnel with a devastating effect. In this matchup, Chief will have 4 of the grenades on him. When assessing both Boba's and Chief's arsenals, what we have is essentially a walking arsenal versus a walking tank. One with a plethora of offensive weaponry at his disposal versus one whose equipment fortifies him to an incredible degree. Boba's blast weapon is not much of an issue as John's armor is faced much worse. And that's not even taking into account John's shields. Explosives as well don't pose much of a threat, as Master Chief has been able to survive close proximity to such attacks on multiple occasions. The flame projectile isn't a huge threat either, with John enduring the heat of re-entry twice. John on the other hand has weapons that are targeted for armor penetration, but I don't believe John's ammunition can pierce Duraplast. Fett's armor does not cover him in his entirety, leaving parts of his arms and legs exposed. Not to mention how big of a problem jetpacks have posed in the past for those who wield them. The question that will decide this round is does Boba have anything that possesses a serious threat to Chief? And the answer is yes and no. While the Chief's armor can endure a large amount of Boba's weapon, they still will be able to keep him on his toes and do damage. Neither shall get the edge in weaponry and equipment. By the time of the Galactic Empire's reign, Boba Fett was the most skilled bounty hunter in the galaxy. Add in his extensive ordnance, and you have the galaxy's deadliest bounty hunter. Fett liked to be prepared for whatever he might be up against, but did not translate to a lack of efficiency when dropped into an engagement cold or when unexpected actions occurred. During his early career, while he was the head of his bounty hunter syndicate, he utilized his father's West Star 36 blasters with great efficiency, showcasing his all-round excellent conduct in combat. He demonstrated good levels of marksmanship, spatial awareness, and even close quarters fighting, though he was still rough around the edges, and was well before his prime. It wasn't until the rise of the Empire that he had really made a name for himself. When in combat, Fett's preferred mode of attack was to strike from a distance and only get in close when an essential opportunity arose or there was no other choice in the matter. However, following his father's untimely demise, he was to be tutored by a number of notable bounty hunters, including the likes of Aurra Sing, Bossk, and even perhaps Cad Bane, picking up something unique from each of his mentors. The survival basics from Jango, ruthlessness from Aurra, brutality from Bossk, and cunning from Bane. He would keep his adversaries at arm's length, utilizing his masterful marksmanship skills, one of his many lessons he first learned from his father. But it's not to say that he wouldn't engage an enemy up close and hand to hand. He's done so before, but there was always less risk involved when he was fighting on his own terms. Sometimes, he preferred to disarm his opponents with his shots, but most times just kill them outright with several critical shots. When at a disadvantage, Boba was always acting, never reacting, overwhelming his opponents with blaster onslaughts, or just his array of weapons. As for his martial hand-to-hand execution, he was nearly if not just as skilled in his field of marksmanship, achieving such feats as overpowering towering brutes, killing individuals with a mere blow, and even faring decently against a hesitant Kenobi. Going back to his knowledge of cunning, he would use any such method available to exploit the target, just as he would go on to teach Jaina solo. This could be as simple as using a long-range rifle as a club, or pulling out a cheeky distraction device to change positions and put the engagement back on his terms. Simply put, there is no job that is too difficult or opponent that is too tough that Fett can't defeat. As I mentioned earlier, Chief was a highly decorated war veteran that achieved every single medal, albeit the Prisoner of War medallion, but this was due to the fact that the Covenant did not take any prisoners. As part of the Spartan 2 program, John would spend the next 8 years of his life training to be the perfect soldier. His physical military training was handled by Senior Chief Petty Officer Franklin Mendez, the greatest hand-to-hand and physical training instructor in the UNSC, while the academic side of things was handled by the smart AI Deja, who was also Dr. Halsey's assistant, their minds being trained just as well as their bodies. Every single profound military strategy and tactic in human history was gone over, from Sun Tzu to Hannibal. Nothing was missed. I know this isn't going to be a valid point, but I think it should still be mentioned regardless. But some of the Spartan 2s exhibited certain traits and gifts that made them stand out among themselves. Kelly was the fastest, Sam was the strongest, and in John's case, he was the luckiest. While this is a ridiculous notion to have in this matchup, it was something to make note of, especially since it's perhaps part of the reason he stood out and became team leader. In operations, John 117's role was command and assault, but since there's no one in this matchup but he and Boba, he'll just be assaulting. The core mentality that was ingrained into him and the rest of his squad mates was that he had to adapt or die. It meant that when his current plan didn't work accordingly, or there was an unforeseen complication, he could readjust tactics respectively. He has faced a number of adversaries, from Sankili commanders to Flood combat forms to Promethean Knight commanders and battle wagons, all noted for their strategic and tactical mindset in combat. When it came to close quarters, it's been said that Spartan 2s were trained in all military and most martial arts styles. While there is no explicit statement of what form he used, it wouldn't be too out of place to suggest that the discipline he used was CQC. CQC was a combination of multiple fighting disciplines that involved hand-to-hand combat techniques, firearms, and tactical bladed weapons. Some examples would be when Chief was grappled by a brute, a species that was as fast and a lot stronger than the average Spartan. He was then able to surgically out-wrestle the behemoth and get free. Another case would be when he had to outmatch a Sankili assassin while heavily fatigued and his armor was heavily damaged. Lastly, Master Chief's marksmanship skills were at the expert level. While not on the same level as Fred 104 or Linda 058, he was more than qualified to be in the same league. His marksmanship skills were so impressive, he was able to land multiple headshots on opposing snipers merely a year after receiving the Mjolnir Mark IV. Overall, John 117 was a versatile and effective combatant and was one of humanity's greatest warriors. Both combatants use extremely similar yet different tactics in battle. While Boba and the Chief rely on their equipment, training, and ingenuity, both their approaches to how they fight couldn't be more different. Boba likes to keep his distance, is the better marksman, and will get up close and personal if need be, but at the same time, the Chief likes to get up close and personal, and would more than likely win in a hand-to-hand engagement. Neither shall get an edge in tactics. I would first like to make very clear that in these verdict logs that I make are not necessarily how I think the fight would go down, but rather is made mostly to decide who I think would win and for entertainment value. For this match, I see the majority of 6 to 7 out of 10 going towards the victor. Now that that's been covered, let's get into the battle. Master Chief stood at the edge of the platform, thinking to himself, how do I get back to Earth? Without warning, shot striking the Chief in the back, he barrel rolls into cover nearby. Peeking his head from over the cover, he's able to glance at his attacker before ducking his head back down in response to incoming blaster fire. Boba Fett was perched on a ledge, aiming down through his scope at Master Chief. He was surprised that the target wasn't down yet. This made him wary, and he held in his position. His train of thought was then quickly broken when a frag grenade was tossed onto his ledge. Boba's impressive reaction time allows him to shoot up from his spot, and is greeted by a volley of 3-round bursts from the Chief's rifle. His shots are deflected by Boba's armor, as well as Fett returning the favor. Master Chief hunkers down behind his cover, reloading his rifle only to find that Boba Fett is on the other side, facing him in the sky, which is then followed up by one of Fett's concussion rockets that hits the Chief's area. Master Chief is then flung a few meters back, but is back up with no sign of physical harm. Just as he's gathering himself, he's greeted by a jetpack propelled tackle from Boba, and is picked up and slammed in a wall. This is done a second and the third time. John's shields are flickering before he wraps his arms around Boba, squeezing him and dealing some damage to his jetpack as well. Boba retires with a headbutt, loosening Master Chief's holding on him as the two separate mid-air, with Fett flying away and Chief using his thrusters to land safely on the ground. Boba then cruelly soars in through one of the archways to get to the other side of the complex. Master Chief picks up his rifle and is in pursuit. Moving cautiously through the archway and getting to the other side, he sees no sign of the adversary. Several motion alerts begin to pop up on Chief's HUD as simultaneously Cortana calls out his name. He peers up to see a missile mere meters from his face. He braces himself and backhands the projectile with his left hand away from his person. John drops to his knees in exertion with his shields depleted. He's then struck in the helm and his right shoulder by blaster bolts from Fett's own rifle. His helmet unfazed, but feels unplated area under his shoulder plate burned. The pain was quickly put out of his mind, as well as the fact that he knew the biofilm was already treating the wound. It was time for John to now go on the offensive. Sprinting to a nearby wall to get himself together, he knew the only way to win was to get in close with the enemy, and he knew just how. Bursting out from behind the wall with lightning fast speed and his magnum in his right hand firing, Boba was already on him, laying down blaster fire as John ran towards him. As soon as the Chief was in reach, he revealed the grenade he had been cooking in his left hand. He threw the explosive at Boba's new position, but before the bounty hunter could react to the bomb and hover away, he was knocked from his bearings and sent crashing to the ground. His jetpack lay next to him. He could feel the bruises, his armor taking the brunt of the damage. Getting up, John greeted him with a kick to the head, sending Boba over a dozen meters away. Master Chief continued to move on his opponents, but Fett was already back on his feet, firing his fiber cord and snaring the Chief, and then proceeding to activate his flame projector. Other than increasing the pain of his left shoulder wound, all it did was stagger John. He grabs Boba's wrist and crushes his gauntlet, cutting off the flow of fire. He then follows up with an uppercut, knocking Boba over. Boba repays him with a leg swipe, sending Chief to the ground. They both got back up at the same time, with Boba's pistol in his right hand and his vibroblade protruding from his left gauntlet. Chief has one of his submachine guns in hand and his combat knife in the other. The two would engage each other in close quarters, firing at point blank range and slashing at one another. Master Chief would land several cuts on Boba, hitting his legs and arms, while Boba was able to land only a slight hack on John's abdomen. All the while, Master Chief was reloading his gun in between slashes. Boba knew he wasn't going to beat him. He needed to end this as soon as possible. He fired at the submachine gun, disarming him, but before Boba could get off another shot, Chief grapples Boba Fett's hand to the air. The force he exerted made Boba drop his pistol, and then the Chief proceeded to turn him around and stab him in his T-shaped visor. Boba's body went limp and he dropped to the ground. Master Chief wins. I apologize if this wasn't the outcome some of you were looking forward to, but in my opinion, the verdict stakes up with the evidence that I've gathered. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out both my friends' videos who feature Master Chief and Boba Fett respectively. Link in the description. Also check out some of my videos as well, I assure you, you won't be disappointed. I'd be very pleased if you left a like if you enjoyed this video, commented your opinion on the match, and subscribe for more content. Have a great day.